Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Well, guys, hi, and welcome to another episode of the Nina Kauser Show. One of those rare occasions where you will not find me deflated, upset, agitated and frustrated. Quite the contrary, actually. I'm really riled up, just catching my breath. Oh my God. Trust the Reds to deliver against the informed team, not in the Premier League, but in Europe. It finished 1-0 at Anfield. Mo Salah delivering the goods. So much drama, so many feisty moments, and just so much to take in. And like I said, I can't catch my breath, and I'm sure you're exactly the same. And I guess what I'm going to do is introduce my guest, because they've got to keep me grounded. And first up, let me introduce my first guest. It is Kaylon Kareem. Kay, welcome back.
Hey Nins, thanks very much. There's absolutely no chance, none at all, we're going to bring you down to earth. That was absolutely incredible. I just you can never tell with these Reds. It is what a ridiculous game. I'm so tired, but so absolutely happy. Get in. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about this.
I know. And listeners should be aware, before we recorded, me and Kay had a good old little scream and jogged on the spot. And we were so excited, just waiting for our next guest to come on. And all our excellent listeners who are joining us live on Discord. And joining Kay, oh, this is going to be a good one. I've got a lineup for you. Tactical genius Kauser here. It is Mr. Mo Chatra. Mo, welcome back.
Thank you. And all I've got to say, in the words of the nature boy Ric Flair, whoop! That was brilliant. Oh, my word. And against my favourite football team in the world as well. Manchester City, and all those many fans on Twitter who like to slag me off all the time. That was for you people. There you go.
Absolutely. But you know what? On the flip side, though, they do keep you really busy in terms of the content that you produce, and, of course, the threads that you the viral threads that go on Twitter and things. But yeah, let's get into this. But guys, I do have a caller, but before I go to the caller, oh my God. I mean, what's your overall feeling over this? Because before the game started, obviously we've got a little chat group, and we were all a little bit mortified by seeing a certain player's name enter the team sheet, given the fact that where we are and obviously not the best of season so far. So, I mean, it's just a complete role reversal in terms of what we kind of produce on here. But I am just whoa, the fact that we beat them and kind of showed people that it can be done. And yeah, it wasn't easy. And, Liverpool really had to fight deep and hard, and everything had to be spot on. But just, the elevation of that. I mean, how do you guys feel? Kay, you first?
I tell you what, Nins, to be honest, before the game, I mean, we were chatting in the group, Nins. I had booked to come on the pod a while ago. But, as I approached, I was like, this was not a good idea. I'm not going to feel good at doing this pod later. City are just in atrociously good form. Haaland is absolutely scoring for fun. De Bruyne is just being De Bruyne. It's ridiculous. At the moment, they look so untouchable. There's talk of them walking the league. There's talk of them doing Champions League and everything. And Liverpool stuttering. I know the last game we'd done well against Rangers and had a couple good results, but you just worry with all the stuff happening in the beginning of the season, our defense looking so bad, our midfield looking so porous. You kind of feared for us a little bit, and I totally understood all the trepidation that was going around social media. I myself was just such a wreck of nerves. It's been such a long time since I felt so sick before a game that I thought I was going to throw my stomach up. Honestly, it was that hectic. It was that bad. And then, and as the game went on and things got a bit better, you're holding in that hope. You're holding it in. You say, oh, it could be, but I don't want to, I don't want to say anything too much. And what I can tell you, Nins, every WhatsApp group I was in until Liverpool scored the goal was empty. Nobody said one word. Not one person was going to jinx it. And I got to say, my whole LFC family, that was good looking out. That was really well done. We did it, and we got there in the end. Absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely. And how was your emotional roller coaster today and the build up to this game, Mo?
Well, you know what, Nina. I love playing Man City. I really do. I mean, yeah, they're a club with dubious aspects to them, to put it mildly, and I don't have much time for some sections of their fan base, but I was quietly optimistic, and that was actually why I volunteered to take part on the Nina Kauser show today, as well as obviously the chance to talk to you, your great self. So that goes without saying, but I was cautiously optimistic for the last several weeks. So I thought, look, we've been in an atrocious run of form. There's inquests going on all over the shop, even from me included, about why we are in the position we're in and why we've started off so poorly this season. But I just had this sneaking feeling that come this day of the 16th of October against Manchester City at Anfield, 4:30 kickoff, I just felt that irrespective of form, we would show up, we would turn up, and we would stick it to these people. And, 1-0 was a scoreline, but it on another day could easily have been 3 or 4. We had some big chances. Obviously, we'll come on to that later on. But I thought we put in an absolutely fantastic performance today overall. Yes, I mean, there were elements of performance that, could have obviously been better. But overall, all those guys on the pitch, they stepped up massively. And it was a delight to see. And on top of that, I thought Anfield played its part superbly. The atmosphere was as great as it's been for a long, long time. So, that was a classic Anfield almost night. It's gone dark already. So, yeah, it was just one of those games that, will definitely live in the memory.
It certainly will. And listeners, just listening to Mo Chatra there as well, the optimism. I think the moral of the story here is faith. It can move mountains and the lack of it can create them. I will never, ever doubt them, but it's hard given the seasons we had. But I love your optimism, Mo, and I love the fact that you signed on to this show because I actually thought we were going to get absolutely slaughtered. Right, guys, let's get into this. We have our first caller. We've got plenty of the game to talk about. So I'm going to go to our first caller, a familiar voice on the Nina Kauser show. So I'm really excited to hear from him because hopefully he's in a much, much better mood than what I've usually been dealing with. And, rightly so. It's Kieran. Kieran, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to hear you all perky again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, the floor is yours. Take it away. What would you like to share? What would you like to put out there?
I was just saying that it was a massive, massive, massive win. I think this is probably the kind of result we needed. I think after we've been in pretty dismal form domestically this season, wasn't going well, but I just think that today was probably a result we needed. I certainly don't think we were going to get it because, the way we've been playing, the way they've been playing, I thought it would have been a very, very difficult game, which it was obviously, but it would have been difficult to get a result. But I thought the lads put on a terrific shift, and I thought it was definitely a battle and performance from our boys today. And like you said before, they got the reward of the big 3 points.
Kieran, thank you so much for your call. Really, really, really appreciate it. I was talking for ages. I'm sure there'll be plenty of talking points from your points that you've just made there. And Mo, I'm going to come to you first on this because I think we're all absolutely ecstatic with the result and against this team as well. And what a way to kind of respond to the critics. But for me, the result is massively, of course, down to the performance. And I want to go there because the first half for me in particular, what I kind of noticed was the Reds were kind of absorbing up a lot of the pressure, certainly in the second half. I thought City grew into that game. But the start of that game, the first 5 minutes, I thought Liverpool started off with some kind of demeanour, some kind of aggression. There was a lot of play on the right-hand side. We were all intrigued about the formation. Is it a 4-3-3? Is it a 4-2-4? We were very interested to see the role that Mo Salah will play in this, how close he will be in terms of with the other striker in Roberto Firmino. But I want to get your thoughts on that, because for me, the kind of signpost of Liverpool particularly doing well is how well they start off. And I thought for the first 5 minutes they were in there and they looked like they're wanting to play a game.
Yeah, completely. The tempo to begin with was good. Obviously, Anfield for a big game like this is always, on form. To begin with at the start of the game, but then if the team then starts off poorly, then that atmosphere can become subdued very quickly as well. But the tempo, it was clear to see, was there right at the beginning. It was nice to see, one or two strong challenges go in right at the early going, which got the crowd up. And then it just becomes a mutual thing where the players feed off the crowd feed off the players. And, on top of that, I think we won a corner early on, if I'm not mistaken. So again, that sort of thing gets us into that right kind of mindset, not only on the pitch, but again in the stands. So that was kind of an indication to me that, these group of players know that they're better than the league table suggests. They know that they're capable of delivering a lot more. And, they were up against the team that, some people, some pundits even were suggesting would wipe the floor with them at Anfield. And they were determined to say, no, are you joking? We're Liverpool Football Club. We're a group of top class players. We're not going to allow anyone to turn up to our home on our patch and humiliate us. And that tempo, that message was set out right at the beginning, and it really kind of set the scene for the rest of the game.
It certainly did, and I'm in the live Discord chat here, and the Mauritian one has just put in a Squawkus tweet saying Alisson has now provided more Premier League assists in 2022 than Jack Grealish. Alisson Becker there with 2 and Jack Grealish with 1. I'm just going to share as I'm going, and I'm going to come to you, Kay. I mean, because I think most hit the nail on the head. I also like the gnarliness of was it Robertson? I think somebody came into him on a late challenge. Was it Silva?
Probably.
I think it was, and he just kind of started pushing into him. But again, that kind of jeers the crowd up. But what did you make of the red start and certain players like your Mo Salahs and things? I was very, very interested to see what would happen there with the formation.
Absolutely, I think that's the one thing we were all absolutely intent on, just nailing down what's exactly happening. The one thing I thought that we absolutely had to do was play Mo Salah centrally. I think that experiment with him being further out wide, however, there's Nins, I'm not the tactical person, but I'm following accounts that are better than I am at this. But he wasn't getting into the central areas, and the minute we do that, he comes off the bench to score a hat-trick. He had to be more central. But what I think was it really kind of surprised me for the start of our game was looking at how intent we were on being compact. It was, our midfielders were in their position. They were maintaining their position. I'm not saying we were playing defensively. It's just in the defensive phases, we were absolutely sure, first and foremost, that we were covering the zones that we needed to cover. And particularly, I thought in that respect, Harvey Elliott showed a discipline where he wasn't actually. I don't think he was really instructed to do that in other games. And I thought in this game, every single person had that. First we need to make sure that we keep them out. That we there's no free flow of chances, and then we build from there. And going off from what Kieran said, what I feel is that it's absolutely correct. What Kieran was mentioning there, it feels like a big result. But it feels like a big one for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a massive individual result in itself. But number two, given that we've had this formation change, players are looking to be more in positions where they can apply themselves perhaps a little bit better than previously. It feels like there's an incremental part to the result as well. So it feels like we're gathering steam a little bit, if I can put it like that. And that little defensive solidity to start the game with. And then there were other things, and we'll talk about that as we go along. But I thought that defensive solidity right at the start, City could feel that they had a couple levels to go up at halftime. I think that might be what they felt. But I loved that we started with that. We held that solid and moved forward like that, just incrementally through the match. And I think it kind of rocked City a little bit, put just a little bit of doubt in their minds that, we didn't think the game was going to go absolutely the way it did, compounded with their formation issues. But I enjoyed that about the start of the game.
Absolutely. And Mo, I'm going to come to you, and just something what Kay said there as well, and it was something that I kind of picked up on in the game as well, was it was almost like building from the back, getting the defensive work spot on, because, if you go back to the Arsenal game and how we lost, and it was kind of defensive cock-ups, and, the way we conceded that penalty where we just kind of failed to clear the ball. And, I am an absolute sadist, because I went back to watch them highlights, and I was like, City are going to have so much joy if we are like that half-arsed and not switched on, because we know how they play, and they can play passes through your box and through your defence like that. We've seen them do it time and time again against, many teams in the Premier League. It's easy for them. They just have this cohesion and this telepathic understanding. And it was just madness. But I mean, what did you make of like the defensive aspect of things? Because I felt like everyone was working for each other. I think they knew Milner was playing right back, and Kay's there touched on Elliott and his hard work. But every time, when Foden tried coming onto that side where Milner was, because obviously they were matched up with each other. But I just noticed this massive willingness from the likes of Elliott and Joe Gomez, just really busting a gut to kind of back him up and step up for him. And it was almost like they were all working for each other.
Yeah, they were totally. And, I read a good stat from our colleague Simon Brundish, I think it was this past week, where he noted that I think the last time Liverpool were outside of the top 8, I think it was, that we shored up defensively, and then we went on a streak of, I think, 14 or 15 unbeaten. And, I think we very much, in the past week, would have reflected on not only the Arsenal game, but also the one preceding that, where, again, in the Premier League, we conceded 3 goals, and just looked at how open we were defensively. And I think they not only looked at it tactically, but perhaps had conversations within the dressing room about, okay, well, what are we playing at here? This is not us. So today I thought, there's clear evidence of that, and it compounded the impressive performance in midweek against Rangers. And, there were certain specific things. I thought Van Dijk, he's been an absolute colossus for us. And, some of the criticism towards him over the last several weeks, some even suggesting he's finished, completely absurd. And I think he wanted to show those critics and the world that, he is still the elite centre-back in world football. He is the measuring stick for all centre-backs, and he showed it today. I thought he was absolutely gargantuan at the back. Joe Gomez, I felt, had his strongest game in perhaps 3 years. There are times, during pre-season and in the opening weeks of this season where, he looked suspect. And I thought, look, is that old Joe that we saw pre that horrible knee injury ever going to be back? Well, today we saw that player. We saw him again. And I thought he was so, so good. But you're completely right about others chipping in as well. It was great to see our, top midfield combination back together in Fabinho and Thiago. I thought that their shielding work in front of defence, on the whole was very strong. That they provided that solidity in front of our back four that hasn't really been there for most of this season. And it was great to see Harvey Elliott support Milner. I mean, everyone was worried about how Milner would get on against Foden when the lineup was announced before the game. But Elliott, defensively had his best game by a million miles. I thought the work he put in, he was there, almost the legs for Milner. Milner, if he was left on his own against Foden, he would have been absolutely slaughtered. But, Elliott's work today cannot warrant enough praise. It was so good, and he really impressed me today with his work rate and his ethic. And I thought defensively as a team, we were so strong, and very much like how we used to be last season, where teams found us after the first, I think for the first 6-7 games of last season, we started off poorly defensively again, and then we shored things up. And for the remainder of the season, we were really strong. And, that was what we saw again today.
Absolutely, we certainly did. And I love the fact that both of you kind of highlighted Elliot there. And I think a lot of people noticed that. And such a young player as well. And that's just going to come with him. His defensive work will get better. Luckily, he's a young player, can coach it into him. But yeah, a great team performance all round. Right, we're going to go to our next caller. Somebody who's just fresh out of Anfield, I assume. I'm definitely assuming. It's Harinder. Harinder, are you there?
It's not me.
It's not you. it's Dia. Right. Come on, Yellen, you.
Oh, do you know what? I felt that one massively. Like if it was a fight on the pitch, believe you me, I think people in the stands are feeling the tension as well, because it was really gritty, right? It came across on TV, but it seemed like Liverpool knew what City were going to do. City knew what they wanted to do. And every time City tried to do it, they'd come close, but not quite get there. Like the crosses to Haaland for the headers and stuff like that. I was like, I could do without that.
We all could.
I could also do without greedy bastard strikers. But if you didn't have a greedy striker, we probably wouldn't have won the match. So who knows? Who am I to criticize strikers? But yeah, we realised today that it was the first match Daya had come back to at Anfield since she was mascot. Now, last time she came, we played another Manchester team and it was 0-0. So
Monday Mania, right? I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Monday night football around the same week, because it was half term. It was about to become half term in October in 2016. And it's just become half term now. It's half term for our next week. And we saw a different Manchester City, and they lost. So I'm very happy. So that's 2-2 for Daya, seeing Man City against Liverpool. So she also came for the Community Shield. So every time we play Man City, even the away match, I'm probably going to have to ask for spares and take Daya with me somehow. But overcoming that, I think the Reds did fantastic. I have to admit, I was like everybody else when I saw the lineup. Milner in, I was like going, and you see Trent on the bench. And these were the things you don't quite register at first, because I was thinking more about the attack, whether Nunes would start or not, whether he was going to start with Bobby or Jota. And I knew Salah would start as well. Whether he's going to go 4-2-4, he's going to go 4-3-3, he's going to go 4-2-3-1. And in the end, I don't know how we were playing in regards to formations, but whatever we were doing well. There were points whereby I thought that we should have a better control of the second ball, which didn't quite happen. But in the end, you have to give credit where credit's due. The Reds dug one out. Like, we needed this massively for our season and just for our own self-confidence as fans. And thank you, Reds, for delivering, massively. The one thing I would ask of the panel today then is this. We saw Harvey Elliott mature, but still have nervousness in front of goal. So there's a point whereby, he really should shoot. Really, in the first half, there's, just shoot, man. Listen, we've seen you do that in the Championship. You can bury it from there. We know you can. Just do it. So what would be the advice from the panel to Harvey Elliott in regards to having shooting confidence at the points whereby you sit there and think, you know what? That's the one to let go. What would it take? What would you say? What sagely words would the panel give such a young man?
Oh, I like it. It's a good one. And Kay, I'm going to come to you because there was, like we've all said, we did come on to him a few times in the first half, and it was just the lack of directness. And one thing that I noticed in the first half, I can't remember what minute it was, so please do forgive me for that, but I just remember Mo Salah giving Harvey Elliott the ball, and for me it was a mess up of decision making on two parts. I felt like Mo Salah should have ran in between the two defenders, and Elliott should have released the ball a lot quicker, and he kind of had it at his feet for a bit too long. Now I know Harvey Elliott takes a lot of advice from Mo Salah. You know, he stopped eating white bread; he eats brown bread now. Yeah. You know, we're moving up in the world, so I think what he needs to do, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is because I did a pod a very, very long time ago with the journalist's name escapes my mind, but he wrote a book on all the players from the African continent doing really, really well just in world football, and one of the focus was, of course, Mo Salah, and apparently he was a very, very hesitant in front of goal, and when his time at Fiorentina, he was told that, you know, just when you get the ball, just be instinctive and shoot. So do you think this is a time for Mo Salah to kind of be mentoring him in that regard?
I think he's got a really good mentor, there in Mo Salah, and this, what Harry is talking about, is absolutely perfect for that kind of thing. But both Mo and Jurgen, he's obviously got what I think is, at the moment, you know, they're just trying to get him involved in the games. They're just trying to let him do what he needs to do. But at some point, they've got to address that. And I think that is the advice there, Nins. I think really the both of them have got to sit down with him and just say, you know, at some point, you do have to trust yourself. We trust you to make these decisions. You're on the field to make these decisions, and we trust you with that. Mo Salah trusts you with that. Jurgen Klopp trusts you with that. And, you know, are you going to make the exact right decision every single time? No, nobody does that. You know, that's, I mean, Mo Salah makes some wrong decisions.
Yeah,
Jota makes some wrong decisions.
Yeah, he made some wrong. Yeah. And so did Nunes to make it.
So did
Nunes. Yeah, you know, it happens.
It happens. You know, that's football. You cannot make the right choice every single time. But in that way, what you have to do, and this is when they have to gauge that, is if you make the wrong decision, you can come back and make the right one. You know, you can brush it off your shoulder and move forward. And I think that's what you just have to monitor in the kid. But as soon as he's ready, those are the words you need to send through to him. You know, I mean, one thing I'll add there is there was also a hesitancy in defense sometimes. Harvey Elliott wouldn't stick a foot out, and I would back him on that. I mean, he's a young kid. You don't want to be giving penalties and dangerous free kicks and stuff away in very, very tense situations. And I thought he very much concentrated on getting his body in the way, but he wasn't really going to stick the leg out into very, very dangerous situations, which turned out to be the right choice, you know. So after he gets some experience down into him, you know, after he feels more and more part of the team, I think then you got to sit down with him and you got to say, like, yeah, you know, this is happening a little bit. We trust you. You should trust you. Go ahead, lad.
I like it. Basically, it'll all come from experience, and when he starts nailing down other aspects of his game, like today we saw a defensive shift from him, that the goal scoring will come as well. Mo, what about yourself? I mean, what advice would you give him? Where do you think he stands? And yeah,
are you that person who has everything, the coolest merch, and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yeah, so I think that one of the best bits of advice I could give is to perhaps just study some of the great tennis players. I mean, tennis obviously a very different sport, but it's one of these sports where if you wallow in a mistake for more than a few seconds, you know, before you know it, you could be, you know, 2-3 games down, and then you've lost a set, and then all of a sudden you've got a real uphill battle to get back onto an even keel. So, you know, the likes, you know, the great tennis players of our time, you know, the Federers, the Djokovic, you know, that they are ones who they may play poor shot, but straight away it's past, it's history, and they move on, and they get their mindset adjusted right back onto the kind of goal which they're trying to achieve, which is to win the match. And it's the same for the great football players, like Mo. We've seen him over the years miss some great opportunities, but not only opportunities, but even decisions, where sometimes he's gone for a shot when there was an obvious pass to play another teammate, and that teammate was perhaps better positioned to score. And we even saw that today. And yet, despite that, Mo has this immense amount of confidence. And, as you just touched on, Mo is somebody that has almost taken Harvey under his wing. And, forget the tennis players, but, he's got an ideal person to learn from in Mo. It has Harvey Elliott. So I think that it will all come. I mean, some of the great players of our time now, if you think back to when they were the same age as Harvey, they weren't quite as prolific, and they all learned from experience. And, I think he's just got to believe in himself, have an unwavering belief, have the right people in his ear, ignore the detractors on social media and elsewhere. That's just noise. And if he stays focused and learns to be able to move on very swiftly from any mistake that he makes on the pitch, I think, his growth could be immense. I mean, he is somebody that, I'll be honest, I still have my doubts and reservations over. But today, against an opposition that could have really made him look like a second-rate player, he yes, there were moments where he could have done slightly better here and there, but overall, I thought he was very impressive, and I thought that what he showed today was that he belongs on this stage, and that's the best compliment I can give him for somebody so young. So if he really remains focused, continues to work hard, listens to the right people, then I think that he potentially has a very strong future ahead of him.
Absolutely, and what a game to be thrown into, and to handle that kind of pressure. And it's great because, of course, Man City are in a great position where they can, really, really see their youngster in Phil Foden really, really coming into his own and, looking like a really, really good player. And, you want to see that kind of development, and you want to see Liverpool afford that kind of opportunity for Elliott as well. So long may it continue. Harinder, I'm going to come back to you. You've heard what the panel have said there. Are you satisfied with the suggestions and the advice?
Indeed. Sagely words from sagely people. I mean, other sagely words today are of a Stone Island will be very, very sad and very upset and very quiet on the way home tonight. Playing like CP still be absolute plunkers. But you know what? The last words really should go to Dare. Dare, what have you got to say?
Up the Reds!
Indeed, up the Reds.
Oh!
Yes.
Oh, love it.
Well
I have
done,
a sip. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy for you, and have a lovely, lovely trip home, and have the best half term.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
No, bye. Right, so that was Harinder. We've got another caller, so I'll quickly bring them in, and then we'll carry on chatting about the game. I believe we have JC Tyrone. Let me just see if I can sort this out. You there?
Hello, Nina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well after that result, I can tell you that.
I bet you are. Right, well, the floor's yours. You know what you need to do, so go for it.
Yeah, that I was afraid there was a few doubters creeping back into the Liverpool fan base. I think that result today definitely made a few believers out of us. I was getting worried myself, but I think now if we get a good run in, I remember Dave and Karen speaking and scouted before about Haaland not really fitting into Man City's game plan. They don't really have a game plan for him. And it kind of looked like that today. Man City didn't look like much up front. And, credit to their defence. I thought they were absolutely fantastic, keeping their shape, keeping their heads. And, James Milner pulling out of performance, man. Who would have thought it? But just the panel there, really impressed me coming on. Harvey speaking about Harvey before, John Daly had the same analogy before about golfers. You know, the golfers, the pro golfer just forgets about a bad shot right away and goes ahead right and sticks into the next one. You know, and that's what Harvey was doing today. And you know, really positive signs from Carvalho and Harvey. But I guess if the panel want to talk about Darwin, I don't know if he's got to the substitutions yet, but you know, there's something special there. You know, I'm a big believer in Darwin, and I really want him to do well. But just wondering what the guys thought on Darwin's appearance.
We've not even got to the main strikers, let alone the subs. So you're ahead of us, Tyrone. But thank you so much. We're going to get on with this. Thank you so much for calling. Before you go, can you just type in your Twitter handle into the chat so we can obviously share it on social media and things? It'll be really helpful. So thanks for that.
No problem, Nina. Up the Reds.
Up the Reds, right. Cheers. That was JC Tyrone. Right, okay, right. I think we're a bit behind schedule. So, Kate, I'm going to come to you. Let's just talk about the strikers in general. And, of course, we'll talk about the sub of Darwin Núñez and, of course, Jota's injury as well. Right, let's go there. What did you make of the front three, just in general? I thought they worked tirelessly. I felt like, you know, Akanji was having an absolute nightmare against, you know, Jota. Mo Salah was very, very involved. Roberto Firmino wasn't as central, but what I really liked about him was the fact that he was like kind of not afraid to get stuck into one-on-ones and kind of win the ball and press their defense and also work with the midfield. I felt like there was a lot of workhorsemanship and they all worked hard together and they were trying to find each other. For me, it was just my notes for the first half, and I'll stick to the first half first, was because obviously the second half was just batshit crazy and it started that way, was the fact that in the first half the strikers looked really worked really well. All of them put in a very, really good shift. Just the end product isn't quite there.
Yeah, no, I think following on from that, Nins, it was a really interesting performance from our strikers. I thought they all had very particular roles to play in the game. Mo Salah was charged with, like, you know, as soon as he gets the ball, it was driving forward, getting into the box and pulling things apart. Jota, the amount of work that Diogo Jota got through was ridiculous. He seemed to be everywhere along that left-hand side. He made a few defensive contributions that were absolutely off the scale. I thought it was just amazing. And then Bobby, you know, what is interesting was that we weren't really pressing from the front and as aggressively as we've seen in previous iterations of this team. I thought we kind of waited until Man City approached the midfield and the furthest point of the midfield third, and then we kind of attacked. But Bobby had license to put pressure on wherever he felt, and he caught a lot of Man City midfielders napping, you know, as is his wont, which was great to kind of see. So I thought he had a really big contribution in terms of defense rather than attack in that first half. But I do, you know, now that we have that, it felt like all the strikers were working in the roles that they knew well, that they were well versed in, and that everybody else on the team could have good relationships with that particular position. So it all kind of worked really well in terms of defensive solidity. It worked well when we were pressing. It kept the defense of Man City kind of just honest enough until periods of the second half, really, to just keep them in there and get us through at least into halftime. And I know our noses got not bloody, but we took a couple of decent jabs to the face in that first half. I thought Man City kind of won it on points, if I could put it that way, but they were not really putting their foot down because of what our front three were in that position to do. And we've seen this in previous games, Nins, when our front men aren't working well in that manner, then the system kind of suffers a little bit. So it was great to see that they could apply themselves and they could work hard.
Absolutely spot on. I definitely felt that as well. More, I'd like to get your thoughts on the front three, because I did notice that there was a bit of aggression in all three of them. They all kind of had like a function where, you know, I think in the past there's been criticism of, you know, like we're looking a bit like, I don't know, like we don't look aggressive. Our front men aren't pressing, and I think Kay's made a really interesting point there that there wasn't much pressing in terms of the attack more. Bobby was doing it more from the midfield, and I saw him kind of put things in, and Jota was just being an absolute nightmare. Mo Salah was just running at them. And one thing I really liked was the fact that for the first time this season, from the games that I watched Man City in, and obviously the highlights that we watch, it felt like their back, their defense did not like playing against our attack today.
No, that was very clear. I thought it was interesting today. I mean, Kay's absolutely right. There wasn't really the pressing there in the way that we're accustomed to. And I thought some of that was deliberate in that it seemed like there was a greater emphasis today on maintaining shape. And I think that the worry was that, by pressing the way that we normally do, City will place these traps to kind of pull certain players out of position, to then open up those opportunities to really get in and around us, and certainly in the final third, try and create those opportunities for Haaland. And, Kevin De Bruyne is an absolute master at creating those types of opportunities. But, there certainly seemed an emphasis, certainly in the first half, to maintain a rigid shape and not let the game get away from us in the first half like we've seen too often over the last few months. And I thought the front three, it was interesting as well, in that Mo clearly was finally given the chance to come into a more central role and influence the game more greatly from there. And, we certainly saw how well that worked in midweek against clearly inferior opposition in Rangers. And I thought Mo was able to influence the game far more today by being pulled into a more central role than he had been for much of this season, where he seemed like an island almost, separate to the rest of the team. And whether that was a tactical thing or whether it was him or a bit of both, who really knows, except for him and the coaching staff. But ultimately that seemed to be corrected today. Bobby was an interesting one in that I thought off the ball some of his work was good. But on the ball, first half, he was nothing short of atrocious. I thought some of his passing,
yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. Oh my word! It was like Bobby at his frustrating worst. And I thought normally when he plays like this, he scores. When he's this bad, he normally gets a goal. So I was thinking, okay, there's going to be some reverse juju's kind of going on here, and he'll nab us a goal despite being really poor on the ball. But it wasn't to be. There was no goal from him, but he still brought something to the table. And then Jota, quietly first half I thought was very good. I thought some of his work was good. I mean, some of his passing was again leaving a bit to be desired. Some of the playing the final third, again can be better. But some of his runs were really good, and I thought. There were a couple of times where Mo could have played him in. There was one, certainly in towards back in the second half where he was absolutely shooing for tapping in a goal, but Mo decided to go for it on his own. I like that, and the crying shame was again, he suffered an injury. It looked like a hamstring, and it might be that he'll be out for the remainder of this first half of the season leading up to the World Cup break. But yeah, I liked what I saw from the front three, and there was certainly more there than I think we'd displayed in some of the other Premier League games this season, where the front three tactically seemed disjointed. I thought that there was a bit more cohesion between attack and midfield, and that certainly had been absent to a greater extent in the games before today. So again, that was a good, promising thing to see in the first half, and certainly in the second.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you both nailed it. I think Liverpool were more obsessed with more focused on keeping their shape and not, being caught sort of napping in the wrong positions. And I was really, really impressed with James Milner not going on wonders like he normally does. Like he'll just do what he wants on the pitch. It was really good, the fact that he kind of stuck to the assignment, and it helped everyone stay wherever they needed to be. And I agree with you. Yeah, we're going to go. I think, and Kay said something as well, and I felt like it was all about Liverpool just kind of holding on to their shape, getting their defensive work done first, and then if there's a pass on, play it and see what you can do and what questions you can ask of that Man City's defence. Let's move on to the second half. And Mo, I'm going to come to you because it's, I think we went into that half like when that half finished, I was like, whoa, City really kind of applied some pressure on us there. They really had their foot on our necks in terms of like, they started like sort of finding the passes, and our defence had to be really switched on, and, we contained them. We did well. It's really good that we didn't concede a goal, and, you've got to hold on to the positives given the season that we've had. We come out into the second half, and my word, it just pretty much goes a bit gung-ho and a bit crazy because I think you kind of spoke about this, but, Mo Salah, has a pass, from Bobby Firmino, and Edison makes a save, but, then there's talks that should he have like played it to Jota, who was just, sort of occupying and could have had a tap in. I mean, where do you stand on this? I mean, I thought it was a really, really good save by Edison. I mean, I don't really blame Salah for taking a shot, but then hindsight is a wonderful thing. So, basically, what I want to ask you there is the fact that it all goes a bit batshit crazy from there because Edison goes down. And then, of course, Foden scores a goal directly from all that mismatch. And, of course, the controversy because VAR steps in and Haaland was a naughty boy on Fabinho. He just basically body wrestles him to the floor and just takes the ball off him. And Pep Guardiola absolutely fuming, as he always is. I mean, what did you make of that whole thing? Because I felt like Anfield and the atmosphere and the tenacity and the tenaciousness turned up a notch within those moments.
Yeah, it did, really it did. And, I thought that, both teams would look to up the gears a little bit in the second half. City especially, I mean, they weren't looking just for 3 points to keep in touch with Arsenal at the top of the table. They wanted to kind of rule us out of the title race once and for all and, psychologically land a kind of knockout blow to us. And, I expected them to kind of ratchet up a little bit, in the early stage of the second half. But I thought that in terms of that Mo chance, I thought he was right to take it on. I mean, yes, Jota was making a fantastic run to his left and, had Mo play the ball in to Jota's path, then it probably would have been an easy tap in to an open goal. But to be fair to him, to be fair to Mo, it's kind of hard to see from where he was running and the kind of angle he was coming at. And also, it's a type of one-on-one situation where, normally you would expect him to put that away. And he came very, very close. It was a phenomenal save, absolute world-class save from Edison. But no, you can't fault Mo. I mean, there are times, obviously, when he makes the wrong decision. It was, for me, the right decision to take that on. But then with the City, effort as well, I thought that, look, it was a clear... it was a clear infringement. It was a clear foul. The player had tugged at Fabinho's shirt, dragged him down, and not only that, I thought when the ball, as the phase of play carried on, was pretty much in the hands of Alisson, and then it was knocked out of his hands by Haaland. So in both counts, you could easily have ruled the goal as being one that was not a valid legal one. And so it was completely the right decision. But again, it was just weird and bizarre that Anthony Taylor, who happens to be from the Greater Manchester area, didn't pick up on either infringement and had to rely on VAR to correct him. He had an absolutely atrocious game. And, we know that Premier League referees generally are amongst the worst in the world, but he sometimes takes the biscuit, and he had an absolute stinker. And on another day that could have cost us in the way that Michael Oliver's absolute stinker the week prior at least cost us a draw. And I'm just glad that this time it didn't make a telling difference.
Yeah, he was dreadful, and we will get into that. And for me, I'll be honest with you, I started getting a lot of anxiety because obviously all our players kind of crowded around him, didn't they, Kay? And you could see him like shaking his head, saying no, because Alisson was sort of protesting that the ball was taken out of his hands. When I watched the highlights, at the replay initially, I'm so glad that Haaland fouled Fabinho further up the pitch, because I think that would have been a 50-50, because I'm not 100% convinced as a Liverpool supporter that Alisson had both hands and full grip and full control of that ball. I think he had maybe, I'd say about 80% of it, not a full 100. So for me, I still think that Anthony Taylor would have fucked up that decision massively. But the Fabinho one was as clear as day. And I'm so grateful he did that, because I think we could have potentially been sat on this pod seething at that situation.
100%. Absolutely. That foul on Fabinho was so blatant and so stupid. And I agree with you, because we've seen it before in previous games. We've seen it before in Liverpool games. Referees don't kind of mind going in on the goalkeeper in that way. I do wish refs would just be consistent. You know, if we knew what the standard was, there wouldn't be an issue, but we don't know what the standard was. Mo Salah was literally wrestled to the ground a couple times in this game. And Anthony Taylor, the best he can offer is surprised Pikachu face for the whole thing. You know, what are you doing? What do you get paid for? And it was only by the automatic process of VAR checking the goals and then going back to look at something that the incorrect decision was corrected. I think we've just seen, you know, too many times this boys club in the refs, you know, the refs association, just absolutely pat each other on the back, make sure their buddies are fine, never have to report to the public or to anybody really in terms of independence, and just do what they want to and get away with these ridiculous decisions week after week. And it's not just us that's complaining, it's actually every Premier League club that complains about this absolutely ridiculous standard of refereeing. But that's the thing, you cannot. And my dad was messaging me during the game, he's saying, oh, sorry, a lot of people are complaining about that decision, you know, Liverpool. And what are you talking about? That was the most blatant foul that you could possibly do in that situation. Liverpool, Manchester City is not a rough game. You're not going to get, you know, masses of huge tackles and that kind of thing. It just isn't that kind of game. That's about as blatant as it's going to get, and that's what it was. You know? I was very grateful, because like as you said, I've got no confidence that the Alisson foul gets called. Totally.
I completely agree with you. I feel like the only way they give it for a goalie is when he's holding it and it's in his stomach and a striker decides to hack at it. Does that make sense? Then they might give it, and that is as blatant as anything. So
it's as blatant as anything, yeah.
Yeah, they can't really not turn away from that. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, yeah, I'll stick with you, because it was all really, really erratic. Because then after that, I think Jota has a free header, misses. And then a few minutes later, Haaland again produces a save from Alisson. They seemed more up for it and more clinical in those moments. It was just a mad, chaotic mess. And I was just thinking, oh God, this is not looking good. What did you make of that whole tenacious little phase of play where it was just kind of end to end?
Yeah, so I mean, I thought on the whole pattern of the play was really interesting to me. I was just thinking about it as you guys were talking, you know, about everything and how the game has gone. I thought the lack of pressing from the front really set things up. I totally agree with Mo. Points being made. You know, we were concentrating on our shape and just maintaining our zones, controlling what we can control. And Virgil van Dijk is putting in a wonderful performance. So is Gomez. And we had that. So we got through the first half, and that was fine. I think everyone was still pretty nervous at the end of the first half. It was just the tensest game ever. And as the game goes on, because I know it happened in the WhatsApp group I was in, City was just starting to get through our right-hand side often. And what it was that Foden was selling Milner down the line and then cutting inside. Yeah. And between him and Gundogan, they just had that down pat, and they were getting avenues to shoot at, and it felt like it was coming. It felt you cannot allow a team like Man City to have an avenue like that so consistently during a game. And I put it in the WhatsApp group, and I said, Jurgen Klopp has got to make a sub now. And this is the thing, we'll talk about Núñez in time, but what I thought that did is it allowed the game to become more and more heavy metal, whereas, you know, coming up to it was more composed piece of music, if I can call it that, as a match. And at that point, subbing Nunes on, getting the Man City midfield and defenders to turn their heads towards a different threat now. And even though, and we can talk about that, but what I thought Nunes did do well was add that spice into the game where you're not really sure what he's going to do. It just all went a little bit mad. And in that way, I thought Liverpool just rope-a-doped Man City. Towards the end of the game, as we get beyond the goal, especially in City get ragged for some. They don't really know how to create a chance from that. It just felt like the game got away from them. It's structurally. The whole control that they had was totally lost after that. They couldn't really get to the point where they could create chances again. It just totally killed it for them. So yeah, I mean, and then that time where it's just back and forth, and you just wonder if we don't score here, if Man City scores here, is all this hard work gonna go away? Already in my head I'm thinking we've played quite well until this point. Is it gonna be one of those pods where I'm sitting here trying to get people we've played really well. It's just this result comes in this context of all these other results, and it has the danger of pulling us back into that mire of what we're feeling before. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the openness, because when it's so open like that, you kind of expect Man City to take it away, especially when they have that conduit down the right that they are exposing time and time again. As it turned out, that whole thing worked for us. It became heavy metalish. We got them, the counters started working, everything started going our way. We had a lot more chances down the second half. And as I say, it felt, just listening to you guys now, to me, it felt like a kind of a rope-a-dope that Jurgen Klopp pulled on, and I loved it. Bloody brilliant.
Yeah, for me, the second half felt more like a Liverpool performance. And what I liked was, the end-to-end stuff. It felt like maybe Liverpool would have some end product and more. I'm going to come to you because, of course, that game, we were kind of probably fascinated in terms of which manager would make the first changes and bring the subs on first. And obviously, we know that Man City have so much riches on their bench. But Jurgen Klopp is the first one to react. On 70 minutes, makes a triple sub, takes off Bobby, Fab, and Elliott. There's a bit of a mix-up. We thought Mo Salah was coming off. God, imagine if that happened. We wouldn't have had. What would have happened?
Ooh.
Think about that. If that actually stood. Food for thought. And of course, Nunes, Hendo, and Carvalho come on. 75 minutes. I mean, I want both of you to talk about the goal, but 75 minutes, Mo, your namesake, delivering the goods. But Ali there, being the output, being the goalie, the keeper that can get an assist. What a ball by him to find Mo Salah there. Puts the defender on the arse, one-on-one with Ederson. I'm screaming all day because I know what Mo Salah's going to do. And the beauty of that, Mo Chatra, is the fact that goal comes directly from a Kevin De Bruyne free kick that Alisson saves and just releases the ball across field to Mo Salah. Just absolutely beautiful, because we've been done so many times this season by those kind of things. So talk to me about that goal, the emotion and the build up to it. It gave me some kind of Man United vibe at Old Trafford, the season we won the league. I don't know, but talk to me.
Yeah, it was almost a carbon copy in a certain way. I mean, Alisson releasing early and falling over as well, and finding Mo beautifully well, turning Cancelo like a charm, and then he was one-on-one against Ederson, and second time round he wasn't going to mess up again. And it's not as if he messed up the first time round. It was more a great save from Ederson, but second time, he was going to play a slight dink to give Ederson no chance, slot it away beautifully, and Anfield erupted, and my living room did as well. Me and my boys were absolutely over the moon, and it was just arms linked everywhere, and it was just absolutely delightful stuff, and we deserved it. I thought, Kay's completely spot on. It was complete rope-a-dope football. First half of the second half, we only managed 37 completed passes, so we were clearly aiming to hit them on the counter. We knew that they'd start losing a bit of shape as they pressed and advanced further forward to try and get that goal, and there were gaps at the back, and Alisson's quick thinking again, Mo being ready and expecting almost Alisson to get that ball quickly up the field to him. All was superbly well done, and the goal, the finish, the eruption, the emotion was just everything that we all live for. So it was just beautiful. I absolutely loved it.
I'm smiling just hearing. I mean, the fact that you noticed the dink as well. I'll be honest, when he was 1-on-1, I just started screaming. I was like, so confident, so cocky, and so arrogant. But it's more Salah, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna come to you. I mean, talk to me about that goal and the emotions and just everything about that. And the beauty of the fact that it was their free kick as well.
It was. What I loved is, we never ever talk about Alisson on these pods just because he's so consistent, does so much. And, I'm thankful we get a chance to do that because often his performances just go by. But he looks about, and I'm watching him, and a couple of times in the game, he's looking for this out ball. He's looking for it to go. I must say, in the first half especially, there were a couple of times when Liverpool were literally playing long balls, long speculative balls. They weren't long passes. They were long balls. And I really don't like when we do that. In the second half, it was much more directed. Our shape was supportive of the counter attack, and then he lets it go. When Mo dubs the defender, I think it was Cancelo. When Mo dubs Cancelo, it felt like Torres at Old Trafford vibes, and Vidic is just looking along. Okay, maybe the facial expression wasn't there, but you just saw on his face, especially in the replay, he knew exactly what was going on. Mo was through the first time, and it was only a crazy save by Edison that had saved them to that point. It wasn't going to happen again, as Mo says. And when he gets there, the eventual shot when it happens, it was like Edison wasn't there. It was like he just went through him. It was just like fresh air, and it was the most sure thing on the planet. And he just wheels away, and you cannot believe that this is happening again. It felt like just what it's absolutely supposed to feel like. That is Mo Salah. That is Liverpool. We lit up Anfield, doing exactly what we're supposed to do. And the way this season has gone, to see that and to have that nostalgia back just felt so absolutely incredible. Such a release of emotion, And I totally agree with you. It did feel like Mo Salah at against Manchester United as well. Definitely those vibes. But I just love seeing the defender on his ass, just looking on as Mo Salah runs away from you. Oh, it's beautiful. I loved it so much. And that's the reason my voice is kind of threatening to fail me now, is because of the scream I let out when that happened.
Yeah, and right in front of the Kop as well. I mean, I just don't think you get more iconic than that. And Mo, I'm going to come back to you because, JC Tyrone made the point of Nunes, and Kay spoke about him as well. But, obviously, Nunes had only been on the pitch for 5 minutes at this point. And what I noticed was after that goal, he started causing a lot of problems, down the left. What I found was he was kind of working more down the left. And, again, he was causing a lot of problems, taking on their defenders. They looked quite scared as well. He was showing what he was all about, running at their defence. Won a free kick again against Akanji. I thought he was really, really a nightmare. Every time he had the ball, he looked like he had some kind of purpose. He had some kind of directness. The only thing was, of course, I think it was around about 87 minutes. This podcast is everywhere. Around about 97 minutes. A little bit of poor decision from him because Mo Salah was literally free. He could have just squared it to him, and Mo Salah gets to them. We take a lot of pressure off. But as a whole, I am nitpicking here because I thought he came on, and in the past when we've made subs to our attack, it's the front three and then a drop off in quality, and I didn't notice that. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that when the goal went in, it came at a great time in that, City don't have a huge amount of time left in the game to build up real pressure and create loads of chances. So I felt that the best way of defending against them would be to attack. And I thought that was something that, Nunes brought to the table because, his pace is superb. I mean, he beat Akanji in a foot race, and Akanji is very quick. So for him to outpace him on the left, showed just how quick the guy is, and he was causing them trouble. He caused them trouble a few, nearly 3 months ago, in the Community Shield, and was a real handful for them then. And I think they were worried and slightly trepidatious about what he could do against them. And I thought that again, on another day with maybe a calmer head, he could have scored one, assisted one. Certainly Mo was easily in for what should have been a comfortable goal to completely finish the game. But I mean, I could see why he went for it. He's desperate to score, a big goal in the Premier League, and he's scored a few already this season. But on this stage, it would have again done wonders for his confidence. And we've seen Mo go for these types of opportunities plenty of times. So that's what top goal scorers do. They back themselves. So how we ended up drawing the game, and that opportunity going by the wayside and not taking advantage of it, costing us 2 points. Then I perhaps would have been feeling a bit different towards him. But look, he came on, he did what he was supposed to do. Was a handful for City. I mean, their defence, in the certainly closing stage of the game, was all out of shape and slightly understandable. Obviously, they were trying to get back into the game and score. But look, that's the sort of thing that I think Klopp's decision to start him on the bench proved to be, the right decision almost. In that, coming off the bench and posing that kind of threat, created that bit of doubt in City, and they weren't ultimately creating loads of clear-cut chances at the end of the game. And part of that is, I think, it was because we brought somebody so strong to attack them, and they weren't flinging everything in the kitchen sink up front because they knew the threat that he posed as well as Mo. So that is something that Klopp should be applauded for. I mean, Klopp's had plenty of criticism, and some of it has been justified over recent weeks for some of his selections or tactics or in-game decisions. But I thought today he had clearly a very strong game, and he outthunk Pep Guardiola. I thought he clearly got the better of the chess game between the two today, and the substitutions I thought were all part of that. And again, bringing on 3 subs can certainly disrupt the rhythm and the flow for a team. And that certainly didn't prove to be the case. I thought all 3 play their part, and it was something that worked well. So hats off to Jurgen Klopp. He had a blinder today, despite the sending off.
He absolutely did, and it's not like Pep Guardiola to overthink tactics, is it? And it's not. And Kay, I'm going to come to you because, of course, we're loading so much of everything, but can we give a shout out? I thought the midfield worked really well, considering what was in their midfield as well. I think Fab was absolutely an absolute shithouse in that midfield. I thought Thiago does Thiago things, the pass masters, and it was I don't know, maybe quite iconic to see a player like Thiago and Kevin De Bruyne kind of face up each other in this kind of game. But I thought the midfield did exceptional. But I think a lot of people will be focusing on our defence, and certainly the centre back pairing of Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk. And I think one thing that was really, really impressive from Joe Gomez, and he got man of the match for Sky Sports, but I felt like for some parts he was maybe doing 2-man's job there in terms of maybe covering and tracking back for James Milner as well, certainly in the second half. And he was doing it a lot in the first half as well. But one thing I loved was, there's a lot of questions on Virgil van Dijk, and I think around about 81 minutes when we were ahead, he does vintage Virgil van Dijk things when a cross comes in and, Haaland is just there and he's just going to bury it home, and he just gets up there, leaps up before everyone and just puts it over our crossbar. But just the switching onness of our defence, which I have to give them so much credit for, because 1 second and you're off the game against that team and you're done.
That's it. That's absolutely it. And I mean, it's absolutely correct what you're saying there, Nins. I think what we have to start understanding is that when the way Liverpool plays, everybody is involved in some way in the attack. And it's true for the defense as well. you have to play your role in the defense. It's a team game, and perhaps even more so than attacking, because maybe your attacker can pull out something, by themselves, some bit of skill or trickery or mastery or things like that. With defense, it's absolutely got to be the team going back there, cutting off channels and doing some things, and that way your central defenders like Virgil van Dijk and like Joe Gomez, they understand their role a lot better, what they have to do. If you have a centre back doing too much stuff, they are going to look inept. They are going to look like they don't know what's going on. That the defense itself is very porous, as it has been in recent weeks. But that's because we've had deficiencies across the field, and then you have overloads in particular positions. There was the one recently where Trent was like 4-on-1. You can't defend 4-on-1. There's an overload that's really bad, and to overcome that, you have to have help from your midfield and other players on the team. And I thought that's what Liverpool got really, really correct today. When you help out your defense, it allows a player like Virgil van Dijk to pick, with his awareness and his understanding of the game, to be able to pick the right decisions moment after moment after moment. And we saw a few times today. He absolutely rose back to his colossal status. A lot of people were saying things about that, as Mo said, is he finished and whatnot. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He came in and he was allowed to do what he does best, because the midfield was very disciplined, because the midfield was holding their zones, and then just by passing off, and that's what I'm saying, that comment about Elliot, it was certainly, look, he's got a lot to learn, but just being there at the right place and the right time, it means that somebody like Joe Gomez on his side understands that, okay, you've got this passing lane covered. I can now understand better what the attacker is thinking and what they're most likely to do, so I can cover this zone or this pass or this player. And that's what they're allowed to do. You can allow players like Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Joel Matip to do more perhaps than the normal defender in particular situations, and because they're so exceptional, they can come on. But you can't expect them to do it in every single defensive action of every single game. That's overload. That's too much for anybody. So when you have that great base, it allows your defense to do the work that they're supposed to do, and that's what we saw today.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see some running stats and see what shift the lads put in and how much distance they covered. More, I'm going to come to you. I mean, talk to me about the defence, and then what we'll do is we'll move on to Klopp's red card and the build up to that. But what did you make of just the discipline of that defence? Because again, we're talking about, the old Liverpool coming back, but like one thing that we always praised Liverpool about was having a great defence, and obviously this season that's been quite questionable. So what do you make of Kay's comments there that it all starts from everyone holding their positional space, everyone being aware, everyone working for each other? And I felt like the midfield certainly helped the setup of the defence today.
Yeah, it did. I thought that I was so pleased to see Tab and Thiago back together again. I'm not even sure they've started together more than once or twice this season. So far too little anyway. So it was really good, and I thought that collectively they played a huge part in us being defensively sound. I thought that Van Dijk had that point to prove that I mentioned earlier on. Milner was the one that we were all worried about, but I thought that he played as strong a game as he has for a long, long time. I thought that I think he is smart enough to know what he can and can't do, and especially against an absolutely fantastic player in Phil Foden. And I thought that Elliot and Joe, between them, provided Milner with adequate support so that Milner handled himself in a respectable fashion. And I thought overall he put in about as good a performance as he could have done. At times this season he's looked like a player that doesn't even belong in the Liverpool team, and I still think that if it was up to me, he wouldn't be at the club anymore, perhaps be seeing out these final 1 or 2 years of his career elsewhere. But the point is, he is at our club. He is one of our players, and he was asked to play a pretty important role today against, an absolutely impeccable player in Foden. And looking at the heat map for the game, City's tactics were very much focused on, attacking that side of our pitch and targeting Milner, and they weren't able to fashion. Much in the way of clear-cut chances from that side. And so all credit to him, Elliot and Joe for, the job that they did. And I thought that Alisson as well was strong. Robbo, obviously, he's working his way back into, proper form, but there's some elements of his game today that were very good, other elements that were quite frustrating, notably in the first half when a shot fell to him, and it was probably the last player you'd want that shot to fall to on the edge of the box, and just as night follows day, so sure enough he skied that shot, and typical Robbo, what you see is what you get with him, but a real heart on sleeve kind of performance, and very much key to getting that passion and atmosphere going in the stands. And I was just delighted to see a clean sheet kept against that team, one of the most prolific free scoring teams in world football, to shut them out and really limit their chances as well. I mean, their XG was 1 for the whole game, just over 1. So again, all credit to our players, our defence, for keeping the quality of their shots so low overall over the 90 plus minutes.
Mo, I'm going to stick with you. You kind of touched on Klopp's red card there. Klopp saw red and got red, and I think he got very, very angry at the build up to what happened with Mo Salah and Bernardo Silva. The whole shirt grabbing on the right hand side. Completely just wrestles him in front of the linesman as well. And we've all kind of touched on how piss poor the officiating was. And I felt like at this point, Anthony Taylor completely lost grip of the game. Klopp's absolutely fuming, gets a red. I mean, can he protest it? I don't know. I've not watched the post-match interviews or anything. But it's serious when Mo Salah is actually squaring up to Bernardo Silva. I want to get your thoughts on that whole thing about Jurgen Klopp getting a red. I mean, do you think it was justified? I think it was a bit harsh, maybe because I'm a Liverpool supporter.
Yeah, so look, I mean, the referees are under instruction this season to allow games to be a bit more free-flowing and to therefore allow, some things that may otherwise in previous seasons have been called a foul and resulting in a free kick to be instead allowed for. And this, though, was just on a completely different level. I mean, this was Bernardo Silva, who's a complete rat of a player, when he's not leaning against doors, pretending not to be seen, instead of trying to make any effort to play the ball, was almost trying to do a Sergio Ramos impression from the Champions League 2018 final. Just an absurd foul, so clear cut. And Klopp was justified completely in getting angry because it was the most blatant foul that you'll ever see right in front of the linesman. And the linesman didn't flag it. And as usual, Anthony Taylor didn't call it a foul. So Klopp was right to be angry. And I think what resulted in the red card is he got right up to the linesman when the linesman was going past the Liverpool technical area, and they felt, look, that was crossing the line. I mean, it's an emotional game, and the emotion in that stadium at that time was 10 out of 10. So it's easy to understand why Klopp reacted the way he did. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong physically, I thought. I mean, he got very close to the linesman. I think it was more for what he said to the linesman, though, that resulted in the red card. I mean, could it be turned over? I don't think so. So we'll probably end up with Pep Linders, who's not everyone's cup of tea at the moment, being fronting up at least one game, I would suspect, which will probably be in midweek. But I mean, for Mo to get riled up in that way is unusual, and it was justified again because the officiating was so poor. It was really poor. And even, by Premier League standards, where officiating is not of a high standard, Anthony Taylor had a shocker. But despite that, luckily, it didn't cost us the 3 points. And, I don't know what to say other than, this keeps on happening far, far too frequently in the game. And until there's serious reforms made, we'll unfortunately continue to see this. And the only hope we can have is that, maybe on one occasion where it's important, it will actually count for us, but it often seems to count against us. But luckily today, it didn't cost us points.
Thankfully. Yeah, because the last thing I wanted to be was seething over a poor result, and the referee was largely at hand for it. Kay, what did you make of Klopp sending off? And I'm really, really intrigued what he said to the linesman now, because I know Klopp's got a pot you have.
I just think it's really hard to watch what happens to Mo Salah every single game, let alone all the refereeing atrocities that we've seen over multiple seasons, which last season actually decided the league. If you want to look at it that way, and you can say roundabouts and whatnot, and it doesn't work like that. It's not supposed to work like that. That's not how life works. If there's a bias, it will be a bias and will continue throughout the entire season. But particularly on Mo Salah, I think it's really difficult to sit there and watch him get wrestled time after time after time after time, and the refs just refuse to do anything ever about it. And on a few occasions, and the other thing is, you can look at somebody like Jim Beglin, who is at one point it was him and Peter Drury who was like the best commentary team that you could get on telly. Jim Beglin has got this like thing against Mo Salah now. You cannot do anything to Mo Salah and be in the wrong. You can wrestle him however you want to, and Mo Salah, no matter what happens, will get called a diver, despite the fact that we have several other players in the league who are genuinely divers. I mean, there was a stat going around today, Everton's Anthony Gordon. Everton have played like 8 games prior to this game week. He's gotten 5 yellow cards and so had to sit this game out. 4 of them were for diving. But he will never be labeled that. You had the Harry Kane incident, but it's Mo Salah who continually gets labeled with this while simultaneously being wrestled all the time. I think it's just really hard. And in a way, it might be that the red card hopefully will force people to, the authorities to look at stuff like this and review these decisions. Say, how could you possibly have made Jurgen Klopp so angry that he's got his face in the assistant linesman's face? And I mean, there was such a height difference that I would also be running away. The little guy just seemed like he knew he was unsafe. But yeah, I mean, it's not ideal for us. It's not ideal, but I certainly understand where that's coming from. In the heat of that moment, in such a huge game, and the ref is just not calling these things. And like we've discussed before, Nins, if it wasn't for and what seems like an automatic process from VAR, if it was left to the on-field decision, City would have had that 1-goal lead, and it would have been the wrong decision. And then the whole way through, other stuff is happening. So I can understand what Klopp was going through. I share his sentiment absolutely. I share your sentiment. I would love to know what he said. And I hope they review it, and I hope it makes them look at the decisions on field after this, because we've said it so many times. The refereeing standard is absolutely in hell at this point.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I like the fact that obviously when Bernardo Silva and Salah were kicking off and Virgil van Dijk got involved, and he kind of pushed Virgil van Dijk, and Virgil van Dijk kept his cool. And when he was mouthing off, I love the fact that Virgil van Dijk really ducked down to listen to him, like, you little shit, I'll floor you. And then Haaland had to come in and kind of be somewhat of a peacemaker, or kind of show some kind of authority. I don't know. But yes, I'm so glad it did not have a massive impact. I'm very, very interested to see what happens now. And yeah, Pep Linda's midweek should be fun for a lot of people. Let's see how that goes. Guys, is there anything you kind of want to talk about from the game? Something that needs highlighting? Something that you feel needs issuing before we go to man of the match? Mo, I'll come to you first. Anything you want to kind of talk about? And you might as well do your man of the match as well.
Okay, I mean, one stat to just share with everyone. Liverpool today generated 5 big chances. 5.
Ooh.
That is incredible. Hardly anyone generates that against City. So for us to do that against them lot was absolutely amazing. And that's why I felt that, again, on another day with some cooler heads and whatnot, we should have scored 3 or 4 of those 5 big chances at least. So,
Yes.
all hats off to our tactics, to our manager, to our forward line, to our midfield for making that happen. But yeah, delightful overall. What better way to bring a weekend to an end than to see the Liverpool team score a massive, famous victory against that blue team from your part of the world. So I was delighted about that. Man of the match for me today was Joe Gomez. I was delighted for him. He's had a really tough time of it, with injuries, and then seeing other players get selected, partly because of the fact that he had been injured for a while. So it was a big game for him, stepping back alongside Virgil, and he was immense against arguably the hottest striker in the world in Haaland. He kept him quiet for pretty much the whole game, and barely gave him a sniff. And so for him to handle him, to give support to Milner, who was drafted in at right back alongside him, and on top of that, to still play some good forward passes as well, which he did. I thought it was absolutely huge for him. So I was delighted because there were serious concerns at one point that we would never see a prime elite level Joe Gomez ever again because of the severity of his injury. So for him to pull out the performance that he did today, I couldn't be more made up for him.
Absolutely. It's good to see Joe Gomez, especially when he had that horrible game against Napoli as well, and people thought he was done, and how people are reactionary. JC Tyrone there, Alisson Becker, man of the match for him, player of the season so far. Would agree with you on that one. I think he has been the one that has not embarrassed us in any way, shape or form, or himself. What about UK? Any talking points from the game? That is a really, really fabulous stat there by Moore. The fact that 5 big chances, I'm really thrilled with that. Any key moments that you feel like need highlighting, and your man of the match?
For me, I think the key thing is that we've looked at previous games from Liverpool, and what's come out was that the setup was just not working. We couldn't get good things out of the players, and Nins, it's something you and I have discussed in previous managerial regimes. When one player is doing something wrong, there is a high possibility that you can say that player is incorrect, that they're not applying themselves, or whatever you want to use, energy, passion, all those words. And when many players are doing it, that is a managerial or coaching issue. There's something wrong with the setup. If everybody is not being able to fit in with that, then there's something wrong with the system. And what I'm happy about is that Klopp and the managerial team have looked at that and gone, right, we need something else. We need a different way to set up. And they've changed that. They've come through that difficult game at Arsenal. Okay, not with a great result, but with slightly better performance. And then Rangers, when this really solidifies it, that they have committed to this and that this new tactical setup can help us move forward. Everybody is allowed in this setup to be able to apply themselves in the correct way. We've got Mo Salah back. We've got the Virgil looking really good again. We've got the midfielders doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that, for me, is the absolute hugest thing to come out of the game. We can now start looking forward to the next games with this renewed optimism that we can find not just solutions for what the opposition has, but going forward, I think it makes Jurgen Klopp's life a lot easier. He can concentrate on tweaks in the system and then managing the players' times, which is, it's brilliant, especially in this World Cup interrupted season. So for me, that is a huge positive to come out of this period, and in this game that the system has passed this huge milestone successfully is everything for me. Man of the match. If I move it on to that, I love that Joe Gomez is getting praise from this. It would have been my man of the match if Mo didn't put him up. I'm so happy for the guy. He comes across as a wonderful person and such a lot of talent, wonderful footballer, and he's done so well today. I think you could also highlight Alisson has been Virgil did absolutely brilliantly. Jota was amazing. And even to an extent, I thought Harvey did really, really well in his role. For me, just to gather all the sentiment of what I'm saying, I might just give it to Mo Salah just because the performance that he had today, for me, is one of the biggest indicators that we've gone back to a system where everyone works in it. So,
Yes.
yeah, I hope we're looking towards the end of the season and Mo is once again in that running for Golden Boot, and that's a big indication things have worked. So yeah, I'll do it for that reason and just to help highlight someone else. But yeah, thanks, Nate.
I love that. You can't be mad if Mo Salah and Joe Gomez are up for man of the match and Ali's in for a shout, and Elliot and Thiago's and your Fabinho's and Jota's. Just goes to show that, and Virgil van Dijk, it just goes to show they played really, really well as a collective. I ain't mad at that. Personally, mine was Joe Gomez because I'm just kind of watching the shift that he was putting in and the alertness that he had in defence. Because again, one foul move or one wrong move, and it all unravels. But both of those are great shouts. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Before I let the panel go, I want to know I want to get some plugs on where you can find them on social media. Kate, I'll come to you first. Where can people find you on social media? And is there anything you'd like to plug?
Nothing to plug, but you can get me on Twitter. And my handle is _KYLN. So it's the Kiln. You can catch me on there, tag me and we'll have a chat about whatever you want to talk about. It's mostly Liverpool, a lot of other stuff as well. But if you like a mixed bag, come and chat.
Yeah. Tweet Kate and ask him about knitting or something really obscure. Let's see if he's got the answers. You made the rod for your own back. That's it. And please do give him a follow. He's an excellent follow. And Mo, I know you've been a little bit busy, so please do share with our listeners. And where can people find you on social media?
Thank you, Nina. So, I've just put out another Money Talks over this weekend. So it's covering a subject with timing's not brilliant, but it was covering our recent slump. And so looking at perhaps some of the reasons why from a business perspective. Also one or two non-business angles to it as well. So I was joined by Trev Downey, the magnificent, wonderful Trev, to talk through those subjects. And that's out right now. And on social media, I can be found, probably the best place to find me is on Twitter, where I sometimes tweet about football and even occasionally about other stuff like wrestling of all things. And my Twitter handle is @MoChatra, MoChatra.
Also, give Mo Chatra a follow. And might I make a suggestion to you, Mo? Maybe do that podcast every weekend. Not superstitious or anything, but, you might be onto something there, give both of these a follow. Guys, thank you so much for listening. A massive thank you to all our callers. Really enjoyed that result. Really enjoyed that performance. Really enjoyed doing this podcast. And I am so going to enjoy Match of the Day on repeat again and again and again. Well, up until Wednesday anyway, because there's another game coming up. My word, I'm so busy. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Take care. Till next time, up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter @Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.